few questions here, so I'll start with the questions. A friend is in early stage dementia, likely caused by anti-seizure medication that she's been on for many years. What would help? Unfortunately, if the anti-seizure medication has caused it and the person's still on the anti-seizure medication, it's actually, if you continue on that medication, the dementia will continue to get bad. There is a book called Stop Alzheimer's Now by Dr. Bruce Fife, that's F-I-F-E, and he shows that a change in diet and increasing coconut oil has been shown to delay the onset and sometimes in the early stages even to turn Alzheimer's around. Also in that book, he shows how the ketogenic diet has been used for over 100 years now to control seizures. So I would suggest the person look at that. Stammering stuttering associated with diet. A child is 4 to 5 years old. I found with children who have this stuttering, the worst thing can be pressure. And so it's very important that there be no pressure. And often, if the child doesn't have pressure and there's no fuss made of this, they can grow out of it. But stress is a big factor in there. Is there a way to reduce cysts in a dog? She eats Zimmy or Ziki Peak. Supposed to be healthy. Do you know naturally dogs eat raw food, eat raw meat, also eat vegetables? Cysts in people, I guess, castor oil compresses can help, so you can try castor oil on a dog. What are causes of tinnitus with a full feeling in the head, as if underwater, and what can help? In my book, Sustain Me, I have a chapter on the ears and I discuss the issue of tinnitus. It's usually from damage in times past. And most of the damage that causes tinnitus is being exposed to very loud noises. Every rock singer has it. So those really loud noises that damages the fine mechanisms in the ear. Also, using jackhammers, and in the war, soldiers that have been exposed to bombs, it's damaged the fine mechanisms in the ear. And sometimes the tinnitus isn't revealed for 10, 20 years after that. We have found keeping the eustachian tubes clear. Yesterday we looked at the 5 common allergens: dairy, wheat, oats, peanuts and refined sugar. When they're eliminated, the eustachian tubes are a lot clearer and the tinnitus can greatly reduce. What causes diverticulitis? The small bulging pouches in the colon. Is it dangerous and how can it be healed? Is colonoscopy recommended? Colonoscopy is not recommended. All colonoscopy is giving a person a very strong liquid that causes massive dump out of the colon so that the camera can go in and they can have a look. Personally, I would not have a colonoscopy. I do not think there is a need. If you look at colonoscopy, it'll say no known cause and no known cure. But colonic irrigations can, and changing the diet to a plant-based diet can certainly do a lot for that person to heal from diverticulitis. Now we've got a big page of questions here. How do you get rid of eczema? In my book, Sustain Me, I have a whole chapter on the skin. And I show how stopping the allergen foods. We've seen so many people, babies, 40-year-olds, 70-year-olds, totally heal from diverticulitis. Sorry, we're on to eczema now. Heal from eczema by stopping the allergen foods. Whenever there is a health issue in the body that involves inflammation, then the allergens must stop. Even if the person's been eating it for 20 years before they had that sickness. That sickness can often be triggered by a few things, but until they're healed, the allergen foods must stop. It can take at least 2 months once the allergen foods are stopped before you see a result. What do you think about fasting? Can we get the same benefits by only fasting 2 meals a day? Fasting 2 meals a day, they call the 18-6 diet. We mentioned that yesterday. That's eating twice, 6 hours apart, and then an 18-hour fast. That certainly can be beneficial, but 2 days juice fasting, that goes a little bit further in detoxing the body. What is the best for taking slippery elm tablets or liquid? We find that taking the slippery elm in a liquid, putting the powder into a half a cup of hot water and mixing that in, that immediately coats, soothes and heals the lining of the gut. If you take a tablet form, then the moisture from your body must be mixed with the slippery elm for it to have an effect, so the liquid is far superior. Raw milk is a live food. Now this person is stating this, but it is actually an opinion. I think raw milk is excellent milk for baby calves and baby goats. And people ask me what milk I drink. I say I'm weaned, I eat food. You see, milk's for babies. But this person says that raw milk is a live food, nutrition, packed with good fats and minerals. Do you believe in milk, including raw, is bad for the common misconception that milk is an allergen arise because of pasteurization kills milk? After all, God doesn't make mistakes, and he called the promised land a land of milk and honey. That is true. But calling a land of milk and honey doesn't necessarily mean that we've all got to drink milk. A lot has got to do with our genetics. I'm a 5th generation Australian with a Scottish descent. I can't handle milk, whether it be raw, organic, and that's far superior to the milk in the supermarket. You give the milk in the supermarket to a newborn baby calf, that baby calf will die. It is true, and the figures show this, that I know in Australia 60% of Australians are dairy intolerant, but if it was raw, organic milk, only about 30% would be intolerant. So a lot's got to do with the genetics. If it's in the genes, if you're a 5th generation dairy farmer, usually can handle it. But once we get past baby food, our babyhood, our food should mostly be solid food. I have had diarrhoea, water stool, for the last couple of years, with only a handful of days being normal stool. What is that, and how can I reverse it? My suggestion is make a diary. Make a diary and write down what you're eating in the day and what your stools are like. And as you do that, the days that you don't have diarrhoea, have a good look at what you're eating. And in that way, you can start to link how different foods are affecting you. But as we looked at yesterday, slippery elm. Taking slippery elm coats, soothes and heals the lining of the gut and can certainly slow down diarrhoea. We've had people who've had diarrhoea for 30 years. I think I told you the story last night. Within 2 days of taking the slippery elm and changing the diet, the diarrhoea had stopped. Recently had multiple bladder surgeries with ongoing infection and IV oral antibiotics. Suddenly developed burning tongue symptoms, burning lower lip. I'm being told it's neurological, but I think it's related to leaky gut and several other issues because of the overuse of strong antibiotics. I agree. Please, no more antibiotics. Do you know the problem is when someone has so many antibiotics, I'm not criticising them, they're just gone to, what did we say last night, the princes, the authorities in the field? But the problem arises when someone has a serious car accident and they have serious wounds, they get infected, they take the antibiotics and they're immune. The antibiotics aren't working because they've taken so many for other issues. There's a product called D-mannose, and it's concentrated cranberry, and if someone has a UTI and they take that every half hour, the UTI goes. If someone gets a UTI, urinary tract infection, and takes an antibiotic, it'll go, but a few weeks later they'll get another one. Then they'll take another antibiotic. Do you know that antibiotics are actually causing it? And there gets this vicious cycle, so the day must come when Taking the antibiotics like that has to stop. Last night we looked at how you can heal the gut with fibre, with probiotic foods, and also with the slippery elms. Very good for healing that. Do kids need vitamin supplements? I didn't give my children any vitamin supplements, but we did live in a rainforest, and we did eat a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables from the garden, so I knew that they didn't need any supplement. Far better that our food be our medicine, but as much as possible buy organic. What would you do for a 4-year-old boy who has idiopathic intracranial hypertension? It's interesting the names they come up with, isn't it? All labs and scans are clear. How do you know the child has that? What I look more for is what are the symptoms. And whenever I see serious health problems in a child, my next question is, have they had the childhood vaccinations? We are seeing so many children developing health problems from then, because today children are having something like 10 times the vaccines that they had even 20 years ago. So that's what I would look at. I'd look at the symptoms, I'd look at what the child's eating. Today we're going to be hearing about how to manage heart disease. I'm hearing more and more about oxalates, specifically how they bind to minerals, prohibiting absorption and accumulate in organs, interfering with normal function. Leafy greens, nuts, seeds and foods highest in oxalates. What are your thoughts? I eat those foods abundantly and I don't have any problems. I think it's got a lot to do with the condition of the body. If the person's dehydrated, that creates an acid environment. If they're eating a high meat, high refined sugar diet, that creates an acid condition. And on top of that, then they take the oxalates that can tip the scales in causing that acid condition. Taking Eliquis to keep my blood thin to a DWT and blood clots, due to DWT and blood clots. On my kidneys and spleen, are there any natural remedies? Tonight, we'll look at that. Tonight, we're going to be looking at diabetes and heart disease, and I'll be looking at some of blood thinners that aren't drugs, that have no side effects. I have read in Counsel on Diet and Food, speaking that sourdough bread in the stomach is not good. I've heard that you speak about sourdough bread, that it is not fermented but cultured. Does that mean that it does not sour the stomach? It's a misconception. I have read the statement in this book, Counsel Diet and Food, and the author says, bread should be light and sweet, not sour and heavy. A good sourdough bread is light and sweet. But if the sourdough bread is allowed to sit too long, it goes heavy and sour. So the author doesn't actually say sourdough bread. The author says bread should be light and sweet, not sour and heavy. I totally agree. When you know the facts on the sourdough bread, and you know that before the sexual revolution, the Industrial Revolution, don't know where that came from. So the Industrial Revolution, let's get back on track. The Industrial Revolution happened in about the 1920s, in the early 1900s. Before the Industrial Revolution, all bread worldwide was sourdough. It was either sourdough or it was unleavened bread. And if you look in the Bible, the Israelites, when they were in the desert for 40 years, they had to put all leaven out of their homes for 7 days while they celebrated the Passover. What was the leaven? It could be none other than the sourdough culture. And so for centuries the sourdough has been used. So it's actually not a new thing. What are the best remedy for fever and flu? Fevers and flus are natural processes in the body. A flu is actually a house clean. That's all a cold is. So if you eat lightly, sleep, have hot lemon and honey drinks. In my book, Sustain Me, I've got a chapter on natural remedies where I have a recipe for the flu bomb. It's a lemon and honey drink, but it's got ginger and garlic and a few other things in it. It's just got to take its course, let it take its course. And fevers are a wonderful thing, created by God to boost the immune system, to that high heat can burn and kill pathogens in the body. So if you get a fever, rejoice, it's a great thing. And if you get too hot, just have a cool shower. It's really common sense, isn't it? My babies all had fevers. My children all had fevers at some time or other. I never took them to emergency. But it surprises me today that so many parents are. Just let it take its course. Water puts the fire out, is that right? So drinking water and cooling it with water on the outside, that will just cool it down a little bit to make it more comfortable for the body. All through Europe, fevers have been used for centuries. Fever baths, steam saunas, to stimulate healing in the body. We use it at our retreat in Australia. Every afternoon we create a fever in the guests in the steam sauna. Then they have the cold shower back in the steam sauna. We do that to boost their immune system, to boost their circulation, to boost healing in the body. So fevers are nothing to fear. Fevers are actually a friend. My 20-year-old son has been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, but has not been given a treatment plan. I'm so glad, because last night you learned how you can heal from ulcerative colitis. He is a tremendous amount of pain and does not want to take pain meds as they contribute to constipation. Now, this young man's only 21, so he can heal very quickly. Stop the 5 allergen foods and take the Slipperyom. If there's pain, even take it every couple of hours. And you'll be surprised how quickly a person can heal. Because the cells that line our gastrointestinal tract, they're remade every 3 to 5 days. So healing can be seen very quickly. I'm 61. Is there anything I can do to help with eyesight? There certainly is. There's a book called Sustain Me out there, and there's a chapter in there on eyesight. And I quote a book in there called Better Eyesight Without Glasses by Dr. William Bates. He almost lost his license over writing that book because he's teaching people how to improve their eyesight without glasses. And that's why I can read that fine print even though I'm in my early 70s without glasses. Now, if the lights weren't so good, I might need to have some 2 magnification on that. But also remember that the more you wear your glasses, the more lazy your eyes get. And what Dr. William Bates shows, that eye strain in the morning strengthens your eyes. Eye strain at night when we're tired weakens the eyes, because our eyes are connected to our brain. So just some simple tips like that, and he shows how it's important to keep the eyes well hydrated, make sure to have a good night's sleep. Also, nutrition, exercise, just the simple basic laws help your eyesight. Are there ways to heal your teeth from decay and receding gums? There is. In my book there's a chapter on teeth. And I quote a few things from Nadine Artemis. She's written a book called Holistic Dental, and you'll learn a lot of things in there, how you can strengthen your gums and your teeth, because our gums and our teeth are living. And if they're living, if they're alive, you give them the right conditions, they can revive. Is there an alternative for a root canal when a tooth goes bad? If a tooth goes bad and the nerve dies, that tooth must be extracted. So what they're doing today is they're taking the nerve out, cleaning it out with a very toxic chemical, then filling it, and it's called a root canal filling. You now have a dead tooth in your mouth. And when you have a dead tooth in your mouth, the body tries and rejects anything dead. And we've seen many people with major health problems stemming from a root canal filling. If I had a root canal filling, I would have it removed, and in its place I'd put a ceramic implant. Ceramic implants are being used more and more now. There's a book that we have, and it's quoted in my book. It's in our library. It's called Root Canal Cover-Up. It's written by Dr. Eng, and he was the head of the Orthodontic Association. So he was head of the root canal organisation, and he's written a book, Root Canal Cover-Up. So it's important to get your facts. The decisions we make concerning our health and our body should be made according to information. And my aim in writing that book was to give you information so you are better able to make decisions concerning your body. To heal your teeth, is there an alternative to a root canal? Yes, we just did that one. I have gum recession despite flossing, brushing regularly. I chew xylitol gum and use xylitol mints as well. Is there any way to regrow the gums or stop the regression? Very important to eat crunchy food, carrots, apples. I had, what is the sweet apples this morning? Honeycrisp apples. It's apple season, isn't it? Eat apples every day. Great for your teeth, great for your gums. Also, oil pulling. Oil pulling is putting a spoonful of coconut oil in your mouth and swishing. Swish it for about 10 minutes and then release it out, not down this, you call it sinkhole, plug hole, you call it the drain. We call outside the drain and inside's the sink. But just don't put the coconut oil down there because it'll go hard and it'll plug up your plumbing. So release it out onto the grass or into the garbage bin, or you call it a trash can, and then rinse your mouth a couple of times with water, because that oil pulling, it nourishes the gums, it pulls waste out of the tongue, out of the glands under your tongue. It's an excellent little detox to do a couple of times a day, and such a simple one. And it can also strengthen the gums. Can greens, kale, spinach, etc. be mixed with fruit when making smoothies? It is an interesting question because we don't usually advocate mixing fruit and vegetables, but upon investigation of the leaves, they're considered herbs. So all your leaves, your green leaves, are considered herbs, so they can actually go with fruit or they can go with vegetables. So green leaves in a fruit smoothie, it can work. Also, you listen to your stomach. Is your stomach happy with it? Maybe some sensitive stomachs aren't. Is there any health benefits, the raw, unfiltered, unpasteurised apple cider vinegar that contains the mother strain? I don't advocate it. We don't use it. We only use vinegar on the toes if there's tinea or athlete's foot, and my son successfully got rid of his son's warts on his hands by putting vinegar on that, apple cider vinegar, every night. Newly diagnosed arthritis, how to reverse it. In my book Sustain Me, I have a whole chapter on arthritis. Later in the week we're going to be looking at the acid-alkaline balance in the body, because arthritis thrives in an acid environment. So we'll be looking at that later in the week. How to treat constant irregular heartbeat. Sounds like it's very irregular. Vegan diet. Cain doesn't do it. Also Hashimoto's. I've got a chapter in my book on the thyroid, which shows how you can strengthen the thyroid gland, which is what Hashimoto's is. Also, 2 things that can cause heart arrhythmia are caffeine and wheat. You see, the wheat was hybridised in the 50s, and it has a very complex protein or gluten structure, and when it comes into the body can have a reaction, and for some people that can cause heart arrhythmia. What do you do to suggest cure inflammation in the esophagitis, and with the liver? Well, always, in case of sickness, I mentioned this last night, we ascertain the cause, because there's always a cause. Knowing what the cause is, you can't change that. It's happened, but it can give an indication of why this is happening, and I'm inquisitive. I always want to know why. So one lady who had inflammation of the esophagus, as I investigated, she'd had radiation on her thyroid, and ever since she had radiation on her thyroid, it had caused this irritation in the esophagus. So one would investigate. Believe it or not, mouth breathing can cause irritation there. We should always breathe through our nose, as you'll see when I look at hearts. And I also have a chapter on the liver, and there are herbs that you can take for the liver which strengthen and revive the liver. St Mary's thistle, often called milk thistle, also dandelion, that's another excellent liver herb. A sweet bitter for the liver is ginger. Ginger is a very nice liver herb. I have primary biliary cholangitis. What things can I help to heal my liver? Yeah, in case you didn't know what all those fancy words are, it's just inflammation of the liver. They give you some fancy words today, don't they? So to heal the liver, it's important to eat foods that aren't irritating to the liver, lots of fruits and vegetables, plant-based diet. Also, castor oil compresses over the liver can help, and taking the liver herbs we just mentioned. Is there a cure for tinnitus? We looked at that earlier. When I eat dairy, my lungs immediately seize up and I feel like they are burning and I have to clear my throat constantly. What's the body saying? Stop the dairy. The body obviously doesn't like it. I've always had asthma and think that is why. Asthma is an allergy and dairy is a big contributing factor to asthma. It's much worse than ever, to the point of not being able to eat peanut butter. Is there a cure for this? Yes, stop the dairy and stop the peanut butter. That's the first two steps. And notice there are 2 of the 5 allergen foods. In my book, Sustain Me, I have a chapter on asthma, and in that chapter, I basically show that.